The Cathedral of Notre Dame is one of France's most famous landmarks. It sits in the heart of Paris on the Ile de la Cite, meaning island of the city. It was placed near the waterway and controlled the passage of goods, which made it grow wealthy, and Paris soon became the center of the emerging European power. In the 12th century, Paris' spiritual center began to grow. There was a martyr named Saint Denis in the 3rd century CE who had his head cut off and ran with it in his hands for about 6 miles until he stopped in a spot north of the city. In this spot, people decided to build a basilica, which is similar to a cathedral, except it was used as a courtroom and held official functions. It was built in the Gothic style, which includes stone structures, lots of glass, columns, sharp spires, detailed structures, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses used to support the building's sides. As this basilica was being built, there was a bishop of Paris named Maurice de Sully who saw the Gothic style of architecture and really admired it. He contracted an architect whose identity is still unknown to design a new church that was also in the Gothic style. Designs were made and construction began in 1163. Sully devoted his life to the cathedral, but was only able to celebrate the first Mass because he died in 1196. It would take another 150 years before the cathedral would be entirely built. In 1345, the cathedral would be completely finished, incorporating the new innovations of the Gothic style by a builder named Jean Ravi. The cathedral had intersecting stone ribs to support the roof instead of thick walls, which took up less space, leaving room for more windows. Flying buttresses were added to the sides, providing support to the roof and walls. The high ceiling's force could be transferred to the outside because of this. The western facade included 3 doorways with pointed arches and a row of 28 carved statues. And in the middle of the roofs of the church sits the 295-foot spire with statues of the 12 apostles and creatures that symbolize the Bible's Gospels. Although Notre Dame is such a huge symbol of Paris' spiritual center, it didn't have that much importance in the eyes of the French monarchy. Monarchs started their reigns by being crowned at the Cathedral of Reims instead, which is about 80 miles outside of Paris, and they would end their reigns by being interned at the Basilica of Saint Denis. The only monarch to ever be crowned in the Cathedral of Notre Dame was Henry IV of England in 1431. But it did have uses that weren't connected to the government. It was an urban icon to many generations of Parisians, and during the Middle Ages, it held the Feast of Fools. Notre Dame also became a symbol of the intellectual life of France. In the 1100s, there was an institution in Paris that great philosophers taught at, and once the cathedral was built, Notre Dame began to have classes there. As more and more students came to Paris to attend the school, there was also a large amount that ended up not being able to pay for their educations. They turned to begging and crime and became known as galliards that existed in the shadows of the church. In 1215, the bishops of Paris decided to put an end to the amount of excess students and ordered a decree that set out statues to be used for imposing order in the university community. Their church was still very popular, getting many visitors a day, which led to it being the scene of many trials and executions. During the reign of Louis XIV, there was a call for a restoration of the cathedral. At this time, there's a big change in styles of architecture. The rood screen was taken down, a lot of sculptures were destroyed, the stained glass windows were replaced with clear glass, and pillars in the entrance were taken down. Since it got rid of so many iconic parts of Gothic architecture in the building, people later saw it as more destruction than restoration. But the church would face even more destruction in 1789 as the French Revolution came about, when the cathedral was ransacked and was in terrible condition. But as time passed, people began to realize the importance of Notre Dame, mostly because of a story written by Victor Hugo called The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The novel follows the hunchback bell ringer of the cathedral and describes the condition of the once beautiful cathedral. In 1844, an architect was chosen to begin the restoration. He built the west facade, the gallery of canes, the towering spire, and the sculptures on the roof. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is one of the most famous symbols of the city of Paris. It is a setting of centuries worth of history and is a treasure of French Gothic architecture. With its various depictions in stained glass, handmade statues, and detailed architecture, it is truly a historical and cultural gem.